Can you hear me, Cliff? Talk again real quick. Oh, hang on. I gotta hang up this phone call. Okay, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Test, test. I hear a little bit of an echo. Oh, I know why. Okay, Ryan. 58 seconds. There. I don't have my NDI set up either. Four, three, two, one. Hello, everybody. We had some technical issues with our guest today. So, unfortunately, he will not be joining us. I am working on getting this all set up. But we do have a really cool guest on.
I appreciate you saying really cool guest.
Do you? Here, I'm going to cut to you. I'm going to do a merge. I'll let you sit there while I'm setting up my NDI camera.
That. Try tapping above to edit.
What the heck was that?
I think Siri didn't like something.
That was something I hit. There.
Hey, we're live, and I'm from Northport, New York.
You are? Should we change that?
Yes. Well, we don't have to. I like to fool people. I don't know if they know where I am or not.
So this is a crazy show. So we had a guy, our friend on Joe. We were going to have our friend Joe Matalone on, but he seemed to have some technical issues. So, and that does happen from time to time. I know I'm not looking at the camera right now because I'm trying to get this set up, where we're having to like really scramble. But I do have an awesome guest on today. He really is awesome, and we've been friends now for probably about a year. He is a live streaming dude like me. He's really knows his stuff. But you know what I'm going to do first, Ryan? I'm going to do a little bit of a quick play here. Why is my audio not showing up for my open show open? Show open. It says it's on. Good. Okay, guys, I think we should do a little show open first. So we'll see you soon. Why isn't it playing? I know why it's not playing. Because that's just a logo. Hold on, guys. We're having a lot of problems here today. Here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's Tuesday, April the 14th here in lovely downtown Northport, where I'm being held captive in a 7,000 square foot building for weeks and weeks on end. But I feel like saying, like that old Chinese fortune cookie, where it says something like, help, I'm being held prisoner in a Chinese fortune cookie factory. Did you ever see that, Ryan?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, that was a fortune that they used to see every once in a while. I'm trying to like figure this all out. Oh, Ryan Brenneman joined. Interesting. That was not a join. Okay, anyway, so Joe is going to come on. We're going to talk about business and adapting to the new world of business and problems that people are having. But so today is going to be a little bit different because we were fortunate enough to get Ryan Brenneman on, who has been in the live streaming world for several years now. He and I work together on various projects. He is pretty well versed. We have decided that we are not going to be geeky today, right, Ryan?
Right, we're not going to talk about anything technical.
Ryan, don't be so animated.
We are not going to talk about anything technical.
Okay. I think I'll quick play me here. Hello, guys. I'm here too. But so let's get back to this shot here. Boop. Ryan, our world is changing dramatically. People are having to
in a very
adapt.
fast way.
A, do you think that this is a permanent change to the world in which we live in and how we conduct business? Go.
I think it will have long-term effects of how we continue to do things. I don't know that it's going to be permanent in the sense that people will want to return to some level of normalcy, but I will think that the increased efficiencies that everyone is seeing, why would you not want to have those same things where maybe instead of traveling and commuting, now you can come into stuff. In our world, that may mean that we're installing cameras in places that we wouldn't have done before, and we can live stream for them. And I know this sounds a little bit morbid, but like one of the areas that has really increased for us has been live streaming funerals.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Before you go, I want you to discuss that. But first, I need the spelling of your last name.
It is, I feel like I'm on an actual news station where they want your name first. It's BRENNEMAN.
Yep. That's what yep. And what do you want us to, what do you want your title to be? Founder of what?
We could just do the smart live streamer.
The Smart Live Streamer.
Yeah, I'll give a shameless plug while you're typing in. We have a show that's starting up. It's primarily based around podcasting, talking about live streaming. And later on this evening, we're going to record a show episode that's talking about how to use things like the Elgato Stream Deck. I know we're not talking about gear, but it's this really cool device that gamers use and that we've been able to now apply that really out of the necessity of the response, like you said, about COVID-19. Sure, businesses are changing up how they're doing things, but we also are now doing more with less as well. Cliff, you're producing and being a guest on the show. And from my studio, I'm producing and being a guest on the show. So we have to just find ways to be more efficient.
Absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about the, hold on a second. Talk to us a little bit about live streaming funerals. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, at first it seems to be maybe a little bit morbid, opportunistic, but the reality is that everyone has to go through a grief process, and what we're really helping to do is to facilitate that. At least where we are in Western Maryland, our governor has ordered that nobody can gather in groups of 10 or more. And so how do you have a family that grieves? Well, what we're able to do is to live stream from the funeral home or from the graveside back to the family, which is providing them with a level of closure that they otherwise would not have had. And so it really has kind of where our other areas of our business have slowed off, this has picked up, and it's been kind of like a perfect timing type thing.
Have you done a lot of these?
Yeah, about 12.
That's fascinating.
And that's not bad. I mean, we're in a county of 80,000 people, so it's not like we're in a large metro area. But just several of the nursing homes or not nursing homes, but funeral homes have kind of said, you know what, we want to be able to offer this thing. We're trying to keep the price as affordable as possible, so we take a single camera. We're taking, one device to stream out to the internet, and that's pretty much it. And it's a real small package that we take along takes about 30 minutes to set up, 30 minutes to tear down, and at the end of it, they have a video of their loved one's funeral, or they've watched it live. They can download that video to their computer to save it forever. And so it's not just a live streaming component, but now they're getting something that's new that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to go back and look on that. If the funeral home has included a memorial video, which basically all of them do, when we edit that live video, we'll put the memorial video right on the front of it. Because, you know, the reality is most nursing homes still make that memorial video on a DVD. Well, who is a DVD player? It's certainly not the grandkids that would want to see the pictures of their loved one, you know, as they were growing up, and they've digitized all those pictures. And so we provide them with a direct Vimeo link to download. And, you know, it doesn't matter if it's on a smartphone, a tablet, or a PC, they'll have that video forever.
Who's showing up to those virtually to those funerals?
You know, there was a funeral that I guess this was maybe about maybe a week and a half ago. Anyway, this lady had touched so many lives in so many states. She was a missionary from that had been overseas and had helped many different organizations all around the country. And so it was really important. There were so many people watching that funeral. You know, at the end of the day, I think we had like 192 views real time.
Wow.
For a funeral, that's a pretty good audience size for somebody's for their memorial service.
Yeah.
And so that was really important for them. But she had just touched so many people. And I think out of convenience, people really enjoyed being able to watch that. Not only was it closure, but they got to learn something about that person. And because, again, if you can only put less than, well, and if I'm included in a number of this less than 10, now you can only get about 8 family members into the service. So it's really important.
And what's like the watch? I'm sure that the watch time for a funeral is much longer than other types of live streams.
Yeah, where everyone ditches off, you know, within the first couple minutes. If they don't like what you're hearing, I think for the funeral, they're probably going to stick around and watch. The cool thing about doing it on Vimeo and not Facebook is that you're not required to have a login, but then you could also watch it on your big screen TV as well. And so all they did was have a URL link that they could access on their smart TV, and now they're able to see the whole thing on a big screen. And so that was kind of nice. Now, some families have expressed like they don't want any shots of the casket, and for those things, we take it on a case-by-case scenario. If they don't feel comfortable with live streaming, we are definitely recording more services, and they can go back, and then it's password protected and things of that nature. And actually, I think most of the funeral live streams that we've done have been password protected, just to make sure that it's just family and friends are able to see that.
This just goes to show you the far-reaching applications of live streaming.
Yeah, who would have thought live streaming funerals would have become a big thing?
Seriously. That's incredible. What are some of the other like applications for live streaming that you do or that you see, especially in the context of what we're all grappling with in COVID-19?
Well, I think we're doing a lot more remote productions. I mean, just like what we're doing right here, right now. I'm not saying that studio time is going to go away by any means, but now if you had a person who was only interviewing local people, there's a good chance that they've now seen that it's very simple to get somebody online remotely. And so just like I am in Western Maryland, you know, probably about an 8-hour car ride away, now my show, my thing can start opening up to interview people from anywhere in the world. And so it really reduces down a lot of barriers. And I think it's just caused us to think differently about how we have to do programming and things like that. The technical possibility was always there. It is just simply we were very comfortable in people coming to us, people coming to our studio space. And now we're realizing that it's just as easy to just remote somebody in. Now, of course, you're always going to have the technical difficulties and nuances of those type of things. Is their bandwidth good? Do they have good audio equipment? is there's just a lot of varying factors. But if you were working to mitigate some of those things, I've seen now where people are sending out a webcam and doing some technical things on the forefront, maybe a week or 2 weeks in advance, to make sure that they're going to receive a high quality broadcast. But I think that's what's kind of facilitated some of the changes
Yeah.
with this COVID-19 thing.
Yeah, I found that at first some of my live streaming dipped a little bit because I think people were grappling and organizations were grappling with what are we going to do? And now what I'm seeing is I'm getting the calls are starting to come back up now because people are realizing, you know what? We can't just shut down. We need to keep our message out there. And the calls are, I need to do something to keep our face and our message in front of our customers. How can you help me? That's what I seem to be getting.
Yeah, I think at first everyone was kind of like, okay, well, what in the world's going to happen? We'll take a 2-week hiatus and we'll revisit all this stuff, when everything starts to open back up. But when things don't open in 2 weeks, what are you going to do? Now people are really evaluating the necessity to have their message front and center. And, I think that's just because everyone thought this was very short term. Our minds probably were not able to wrap around this very long-term effect. But now we're seeing it more long-term, and this thing could very well continue for several more weeks until things start to resume some level of normalcy. You run shows that are, not large groups of people into your studio, but many other organizations in the live streaming space, I don't know that you're going to see a lot of conferences that continue, at least in the normal sense of how they would host a conference with 1,000 or 1,500 people. There may be some very long-term effects saying that conference spaces can only host a quarter of their capacity.
Yep.
Well, what are you doing then to capture the other people? And I think this is where smart individuals who are hosting conferences are going to realize and say, I should have been offering that e-ticket or that virtual ticket all along, because why not just make the additional revenue? And now it's forcing them to think that way, which I think will be a good thing in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. As a matter of fact, I've read so many case studies about this, and this goes back before coronavirus. And one of them was Jazz at Lincoln Center. And they decided that they were going to start live streaming their concerts for free. And there was a lot of controversy over it. This is going back 6 or 7 years. And because they thought they were going to cannibalize their audience, plus people pay to go see their concerts. But what they found out was they tripled their audience size of the people who watched their concerts. Plus, when they take Jazz at Lincoln Center on the road, they actually have a built-in audience already because people around the world had been watching it, and now they want to go, and they want to go buy a ticket and see that concert live. What do you think about that?
I think it just speaks to the fact that people want to be able to consume your content, and sometimes being limited physically. If you live across the United States, the chance of you getting to a show into that city when there's a show that you want to watch may be limited. And so why not get that information out to people, and you just essentially broaden your audience? And I think that's just smart business practices. I don't think that you necessarily cannibalize, because look, the in-person experience is probably much different than what's online. There's nothing like going to a ball game and getting a hot dog and a super cold beer. I mean, I know you paid like $34 for those 2 items alone, but it's about the experience, sitting with friends, the smell of the ballpark, hearing the crack of the bat. But you know what? The majority of the time, you end up watching it on TV. And so I think it relates to that. I think that you can kind of create a fan that says, you know what, I want to check that out. Katie and I were just watching a thing. It's a holiday weekend. It's an Easter weekend, and TBN had a show from online. And, you could watch it for free. It was a theatrical production called Jesus, but it's for Sight and Sound Theater, which is in Lancaster, PA. And after we watched it for free, we realized, hey, we want to go see a show in person. It looked like their performance was fantastic. So I don't think that cannibalized anything at all. I think if anything, they've just marketed it to somebody who's willing to pay $78 a ticket to go see it in person.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, another study, New York Magazine actually did a study with Livestream, who got bought by Vimeo, and they found out that 67% of those who watch a live stream event are more likely to buy a ticket for that event the next time it comes around.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have much to say to their statistics of things like that, but it's definitely how I feel as a consumer. If I've seen something and it's piqued my interest, then why wouldn't I want to go see that in person? But the same is true, like even in our industry. I was watching productions out of LiveX, which is in Hudson Yard, and went to NAB New York, and then I wanted to go take a tour of their studio to see where those things are being produced at. So that's just, I think it lines up with how I personally consume things, or even professionally.
Yeah. What other kind of like applications do you think business is going to have for live streaming? Like, what do you think this is going to mean for conferences? I mean, let's take NAB, for example. I mean, I don't think it's going to go away, but by the same token, conferences gather thousands of people, right? So you have thousands of people going to an event. I don't see anybody wanting to be close to anybody anytime soon. I don't see anybody wanting to be close to anybody in a stadium for a ball game anytime soon. I believe this is going to change dramatically, and streaming is going to become an integral part of these types of events. What do you think?
I would agree. I do think that events will become more personalized virtually. So I think you'll start to see a bit more immersion in some of these streaming events. It's no longer just a secondary part, right? That's your primary part. So I think that, if you're looking at like baseball games, people are going to be able to pay for premium content and receive kind of almost an immersive experience with that. That could be dugout interviews. That could be the things that what you enjoy most about being in person in the game, having those experiences online as well. But I would say for the conference space, I think you're right. The Javits Center has been turned into a COVID-19 treatment facility, right? Well, in the fall, NAB hosts their shows directly in that facility. To some degree, in the back of my mind already, I've said, wow, okay, well, I know that that's going to be cleaned up in time, but it's going to be weird walking into the space knowing what the space was utilized for. And I think all of the trade shows will see that kind of effect from this facility. But it also wanders into the back of my mind. Do I then want to be in a space where international travelers have all come to the same space? You're standing right side by side, people. But if I could experience that virtually, would I rather do that? And then the other thing is, take a look at the manufacturers. They spend a ton of money going to these trade shows, millions and millions of dollars. I mean, just for a horrible internet connection for several days, they're paying $10,000.
Right.
And so what happens when these manufacturers say, you know what, I'm going to go on a road show and I'm going to take my products and we're going to travel around the United States and we're going to host these mini summits or visit people personally or individually. They can save a ton of money, still continue to get their product information out there. Hey, if you want to send some products on the Smart Live Streamer, I'll be happy to talk about them. And that's getting their message out in new, unique ways without having to spend all of this money on all of these trade shows where people are just concerned about coming into them.
And here's a couple of other things I see. A big conference now can host a virtual conference, right? Mm-hmm. So they can have, you could build a web page that's a landing page and has a main screen, just like you would have at a conference where this is all where all the keynotes are. Then on the side, you could have all these thumbnails that would have live seminars and workshops. So you're essentially doing the same thing, only you're doing it in the context of it being virtual. Now let's go one step further. If you're a company now, do you really need to even be on that website? Or could you make your own event? Can you make your own conference that has keynote speakers, that has seminars and all kinds of workshops, right? So I could make a case for both.
Right. Well, look at Stream Geeks with Paul and Tess.
Right.
You know, Stream Geeks and PTZ Optics has hosted several summits. We were a part of the same summit in New York City.
We were.
For Stream Geeks, and they've also now hosted 2 worship conferences that has been geared around the faith market and House of Worship, where they have hosted their own 100% virtual conference, if you will, and the key parts, the main parts, are all done using social media for streaming, and then their breakout sessions have all been using Zoom, so it kind of creates an interactive space. And very successful, no cost for it, and I think that more companies could be looking at that type of stuff.
I do too. I mean, think about what does it cost for a company to go to a trade show? Let's walk through what that process is like, right? First, you got to pay for a booth.
You got to get the space.
You got to get the space.
The display.
Design the
Those
display and
displays,
build it.
Cliff, crazy expensive for those displays.
And when you're at like Javits Center, you can't do anything because the unions are all involved. So you got to pay a ton of money for everything. You've got to build it out. You've got to send employees to this conference. What is flights, hotels, food, any other kind of expenses? What does that cost? Right?
Just look at entertainment expenses, taking clients out to dinner and all this other stuff. I mean, it is not cheap.
No, it's not cheap at all. So now you're building an event where you don't have hotels, you don't have flights, you don't have to build a booth. Well, and you could spend $10,000, $20,000 on a set, and it would still be a fraction of the cost of what you're paying to go to a trade show, right?
I think something to the level of NAB in New York or Las Vegas, it wouldn't surprise me if companies don't drop $50,000 to $150,000 depending on their booth space.
Oh, easy.
Easily.
Easy.
Plus all the soft cost and everything else associated. Now, you could do a lot with that money. You could hire a person full-time that can drive your product around the country, helping to sell those things. But, you know, on the flip side, Cliff, I think it is about getting together still. To some degree,
Yes.
we met each other in person.
Yes, that was a big deal.
And that's a big deal. It's a big value. And so I think that we'll see changes in it, but I also think that we're inherently social by nature, and that while things are great to be virtual, you know what? I still want to come up and give you a hug. Sorry.
Right.
I know it's not allowed, but I just want to show up, see you again, give you
Is
a
that
hug.
specific to me?
Yeah, hey, we'll give it specific to you.
Okay.
I'd hug Tom. I'd hug Paul
Right.
and Tess. But yeah, specific to you, pal. I'm gonna come up when I get to see you in person and give you a hug.
Yeah.
But that just describes our social nature and what we want to be. So I think that we can migrate towards virtual stuff. But at the end of the day, it is nice from time to time to get together and collaborate, have dinner, grab lunch, and learn more about this industry in person.
Oh, I agree. I can't agree more. I don't think a conference will go away. I think in the short term, it might go away. Because I think people are going to still be freaked out, and you're going to have like a PTSD, right? People are going to have like a PTSD of like, oh, I'm not going to a place with thousands of people. But over time, when we have a vaccine for this and people start to feel more comfortable again, yeah, we'll have in-person events. But I think what's going now is going to change forever how people view work. and how they view doing events and conferences and seminars and workshops. I believe that it's going to be an add-on because people are going to go, well, this isn't an expensive way to do this. I don't have to do as many conferences. I could build my own for pennies on the dollar.
Right. Well, and look at the last conference I was at was the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas in January, and that's when this thing was just really starting to kind of kick off. There was the first couple cases being reported, and here at the Consumer Electronics Show, they have a whole section dedicated to these products that are being brought in from overseas. Specifically, you know, China is a big market for consumer electronics. And here I am wandering around these aisles. And after the fact, you know, it did make me think, okay, wow, in a global economy and on a global scale, going to these conferences, you know, it will cause people to think about what areas they may be visiting, especially in some of these conferences that are bringing people in worldwide. And that's just a propagation of how the disease spreads, right? So I think maybe more regional shows is a key point.
And on the positive side, like just the way the virus spread, your message can spread the same way. I hate to like kind of equate the two, but what I'm saying is that at a conference, only the people who are there get to experience the conference. But if you create a conference or an event virtually, now people who couldn't go there get to go to that event. And that's proven over and over and over again that you double, triple, quadruple the amount of eyes that can go to an event when it's virtual. So what does that tell you? I mean, that really puts streaming on the map.
I was just looking up something.
What are you looking up?
Is it Daryl Imes?
Yeah?
I was just looking up. He hosts a streaming video conference. It's in California. It's in LA. And, you know, it's expensive to travel out there, expensive to stay. Traffic's a nightmare. It's not Streaming Media West, but...
No, but I know who you're talking about.
I apologize. I'm just doing a Google
That's okay.
search.
There's also an organization called SASTR.
Oh, Vid Summit.
Vid Summit, right.
Yeah, okay. Vid Summit. They've had Gary Vanderchuck on, Casey Neistat, but their conference does have a virtual component to that. And so I've just pulled up their attendance pass. I don't see it for 2020 yet, but the attendee pass is $795.
Wow.
That's to be there in person. Yeah. So when you start thinking about who you could attract to attend your virtual summit, and now you make that worldwide, and it's available for playback, and we're saying that you're going to cut that. Maybe you don't cut the price down, right? The content, information value is still the same.
And then
You've
let's
just
talk.
opened up your audience. You've went from a potential 500 in-person attendees to 2,000 worldwide virtual attendees. And that extra cost is used for a production team to come in and produce your event and have it live streamed out. So I do know that there is a component that Daryl is doing for online, because you can access all the years and the Vid Summit replays. And I don't know what the live component of that is, but I believe that there is one.
That's very true. And then here's the other thing that you got to think about on top of that. How many more people watch it when it's on demand? We're not even talking about the on-demand watchers, who may even be more than those who watch it live.
Right. Right now we have about 3 people watching live, but from the videos that we produce, I think we know that through people searching either on YouTube or on Facebook or coming across content. You know, for me with a smart live streamer, the podcast, that is all post. We're not live streaming into the podcast, so our views and our listens are all happening after the fact. And so each show gets about 56, but we're only on episode taping number 4. And so we're still amassing our audience. 56 listens per episode has been really strong, at least from the startup of most podcasts that are in kind of a niche market. And with here and these virtual summits, you know, you may not be able to attend, or your favorite speaker is at a time where you want to listen to something else. And I think that there's intrinsic value in having that recorded. I just seen Vid Summit is happening October 13th through the 15th in Los Angeles. And that's when it's scheduled to be. But, you know, again, who knows in October what's going to happen?
Well, a couple of things can happen. One is we could have
be a reality.
We could have a resurgence of, let me merge this, sorry. We could have a resurgence of what's going on now. That's what some experts say. But here's the other thing. Even if we don't, I really think that people are going to still be kind of freaked out. And I don't think people are really going to want to, they're going to want to just do the basics of what they have to do. I think this is going to be such a trauma to a lot of people that people are not going to be doing those extra things, and they're really going to be thinking about being in public with others. Sporting events, music events, arts, conferences. So who knows whether they're going to have to go virtual with this anyway at this point.
Well,
we don't know.
It's also, it's not just mental. Think about it from an economic standpoint. How many individuals are going to have the disposable income to, in October, for example, fly out to Vid Summit, pay $795 to attend it in person, the hotels, the airfare, the food, the taxi cabs. And I think that's going to cause people to maybe rethink about their strategy. More and more companies and more people have found value in this remote thing, that I think people will start to question the whole, why do I have to show up in person, and why do we have to have all of these expenses to get stuff done?
Oh, I agree. I agree. And not only that, but we're in a recession now. We're not going to come out of that by October. I think maybe the stock market may come back by October, but I don't think that business will come out of it by October. And if that's the case, that plays right into what you're saying, that people are not going to want to spend airfare, hotels, travel. They're not going to want to spend that kind of money. And so these organizations really need to be thinking about now, what are they going to do for the rest of the year? You know, here's another case study.
Organizations.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think organizations are going to start to build up reserves. I think that, you know, they're not going to be as resilient. Look, how many people applied for this small business loan, this forgivable loan? And at first it was like, you know, $10,000 per employee. Then that dropped to $1,000 per employee. Everyone applied. They hear back from their local banks or their national banks that basically, look, all the money's been spoken for already. I think you're going to see some similar type stuff from the Great Depression, from what my grandparents have conveyed, where businesses are going to create the nest egg that they can operate for a period of time should this resurgence happen over the winter, back into the springtime again.
Okay, so we have two comments here, and I think these are very interesting. One is from Kelly, and she says, agree, large events will take a financial hit. Now we have an opposing point of view, which I'm glad. I mean, I don't really like that you're using explicatives on this show, but okay. This is Cherie Jeans.
I didn't see that. Did that get hidden on the comments?
I don't think so. But it says, this is BS. But she doesn't say BS. People want nothing more than to be together again. This is all an add-on, not a replacement for actually doing things in reality. You know, Cherie, I don't disagree with some of the things you're saying, but I don't think we're going to be going back to the old normal. I believe we're going to be going back to a new normal. And that new normal is going to be incorporating more virtual events and seminars than it has in the past. And I also firmly believe that people are so burnt from this. I don't think people even realize how impactful this is going to be on them emotionally until afterwards. And that's really the definition of PTSD. What do you think, Ryan?
Cliff, I think you're spot on. And I agree with the online comments that, look, we are, by very nature, very social creatures. I want to hang out with people in person, but at the same time, I am now in the back of my mind thinking about where I travel and where people are traveling to and who I'll be with. But I think the critical thing about the virtual summit space is that companies are not going to be able to do a half-hearted attempt at this. If they're going to do it, then they've got to figure out a way that it feels immersive and you're a part of something like physically being there.
I totally agree. And so, I'm sorry.
No, I just think that some companies inherently are going to try to go to the cheap way, and they're going to make this one way, we're going to talk to you type summit. And that's what you, when you're there in person, you have that two-way interactive communication. And I think if that hurdle gets solved in the virtual summit space, then I think you'll see there will be a faster adoption of it.
So Cherie again comments and says, I love, and Cherie, by the way, whether we agree with you or not, I like opposing points of view because this is great, makes for great conversation. And she says, I love that it will change our business. Meeting with people on the front end in virtual space will save us a bunch of money and time, but we will still need to actually make things for people and install projects for them. I don't disagree with you, Cherie. I just think that things are going to change. By the way, Cherie, if you're still on, could you tell us what you do for a living? Are you in the event business? I'd be very curious to know what you do. But Ryan, do you agree with me that
this is going to impact
people want to be together?
This is going to impact so many places, so many hotels, individuals that serve these industries. I mean, this is going to be game changing. And not in a great way.
No.
And so I think long term, the other day I was just talking about like how our economy does need to some extent get kicked back up. And Katie and I were having a discussion, my fiance, about that, and she was just kind of looking at me and she's like, is that how you feel? Well, it was a small business owner and her as a small business owner, it is how I feel.
Right.
And I get that a lot of bad things are happening, but we've got to figure out this new normal. It can't just be wholly shut down for the next 6 months. And it can't just be wide open business as normal. But we've got to find quickly, we've really got to find what this new normal is going to be like and migrate to it.
And that's going to take time. That's going to take a lot of time for us to figure this all out. It's going to take a long time for the dust to settle. Now, Carolyn Kelly Walken says, and hi, Carolyn, thank you for your comment. She says, we've been using Zoom and teleconference as a business tool for years now, and it will become more common. It already is. Not without its problems, but it's becoming more.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the whole
accepted.
Zoom space, that's a nightmare right now.
Yeah.
Kara, I would say if your company's on Zoom, we're migrating people over to Blue Jeans conference software.
Yep.
It offers an end-to-end encryption, either in 128 or 256, and that just means the level of encryption. 256 is a really strong encryption. My fiance Katie is in the healthcare space, and they are no longer allowed to meet with their individuals over Zoom calls. And so,
because of the security issues.
It was a pitch today. Yeah, absolutely. And Cliff, we're on an encrypted end-to-end call right now.
Yes.
I'm sending my production system directly to your production system.
We're going peer-to-peer, correct?
Nobody can come in between. Yeah. Nobody can get in on that conversation.
That's
Nobody
right.
can listen in on it. And that's really important. And businesses, I think, are going to start looking at, look, everyone out there needed conferencing solutions right away. And Zoom just makes it easy to get started. It's pretty cost effective. But now I think you'll see where the scrutiny starts to come in on some of these programs in this new normalcy.
And this is where we're going to become more important, because we are the experts in the field that people are going to need in order to produce a stream at a higher production level, more effectively, and more safely and more consistent. I really believe that, back in the 80s, desktop publishing got big, and there was a program called PageMaker, and then there was Quark, but what happened was all of a sudden Microsoft Word came out, and companies thought, well, I could just have my secretary make a brochure for me. And they quickly found out, but a brochure can't be made just because you have the tools. And just because you have the tools for streaming, and trust me, I don't think Zoom is going anywhere. I don't think Blue Jeans is going anywhere. But I do think corporations are going to start thinking twice about how they produce, what they produce, the safety involved, the privacy involved, the production level. What do you think?
I think for a long time, everyone was just willing to sell up their privacy for the sake of a cool new thing. And I think that has kind of changed. Facebook changed that for us a year and a half, 2 years ago. And that ripple effect will continue for a while. I know we're producing a live stream for a school board, and it's a hybrid thing. So there will be 3 school board members in the conference room where they typically meet, and another 5 individuals that we're going to be bringing in remotely.
Yes.
They could use Zoom or Skype or any number of other conferencing systems to complete that call.
Sure.
But it is about the production value. Now, our state attorney general in Maryland has ruled that constituents do not have to have the ability to enter into that meeting virtually live. They can submit a question ahead of time. That question can be read, and then if they choose to respond to it, they'll provide feedback. We've pitched that I think it's great if people are able to, and I think that'll be the next component. I think that you'll see the Open Meeting Act change for many states, where now the technology is that people can join virtually or remotely. But isn't that a great thing? Look, everyone wants to be somewhat involved in local level government. It's the decisions that are being made about things that impact our lives. But how many people work 2 or 3 jobs or work swing hours and are just not able to attend a meeting to ask a question about local government? And shouldn't local government and local organizations be finding the ways to reach out to people in a different way?
Agreed. Now we have a couple more questions. We have one from Carolyn Kelly Walken, and also from someone named Bonnie. Let's start with Carolyn. She says, what do you think of 8x8? Part of the process will be in person, bigger part will be done separate, and physical projects like yours, Bonnie, will continue much the same for you. Do you know what 8x8 is? I don't know what 8x8 is.
I think it's a VoIP conference calling system.
Okay.
I just pulled it up because I remember seeing this before when we were evaluating moving a client to a voice over internet protocol phone system. And yeah, 8x8 is for small and medium businesses or enterprises, and it basically is a internet phone service.
Oh, she said it's like Zoom. Carolyn
Okay.
said, Carolyn, your questions, by the way, and your comments are awesome. Keep them coming. But she said it's like a Zoom.
I was just looking to see what their encryption rate is
Right.
for their calls, which I imagine under video conferencing. So unlimited meetings, no meeting time limits, free dial-in with toll-free numbers, which is kind of cool. I'm just not seeing...
You might know more about it than me, Brian, even from your research, but Carolyn, I don't know a lot about it.
Yeah, I just don't see anything being highlighted on end-to-end encryption for 8x8.
Right, which is
very
important.
well could be in the back end.
That encryption is so important, and that's the problem with Zoom. So let's see. Bonnie says, We are in the custom closet biz, not event space. But if we were having a conversation about business, we need to talk about the part of the economy that requires customer and on-site interaction. Okay, I agree. I do agree with that. And again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying any of this stuff is going to replace face-to-face or replace that we have to see each other or we need to work in physical spaces. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is we are going to have a new normal that's going to include what we're doing here. And who knows that you might be doing site inspections with some kind of, I don't know, your customer will have some kind of app on their phone and it'll be able to detect the size of a closet, the space, give you a 3D view, and you're going to be able to design it by them just sending the software back to you, and you're going to be able to design whatever you're designing in these closets. I don't know.
Cliff, did you said what
sorry.
exactly is her space in?
The custom closet business.
Okay. I mean, I think when you go virtually, you could very easily be sending in a photographer using a Matterport camera, which is a 3D scanning camera to create models of the space. And so I think that, yeah, you know what, in person is really important. Being able to have a showroom or a trade show with a builder show to show people what you're capable of doing in some of these custom closet spaces is really important. But I think maybe you might see where the one-on-one starts to take effect, and at least the initial consultation through virtual means will have a greater impact, not only to like your bottom line, but how many times are there tire kickers out there that want a custom designed closet, and you have the expense of driving them out there and doing these things? This is where realtors are seeing some real value in having 3D scans of a home, because now a person can virtually walk through the space when a time right now where it's not safe to virtually walk through a space. If I'm buying a home, I don't want to enter somebody else's home that the house is occupied in for my safety, for their safety. And by having these spaces 3D scanned through Matterport or 360 images, I can give my client a VR headset and they can virtually walk through the space just like they would be. And it opens up a new medium. Now photographers who do these type of scans have an increased business. And from real estate agents' perspective, you're not driving somebody around all over Timbuktu, visiting 10 to 15 different houses just to find one or two that they actually want to walk through in person. And so there are efficiencies to be had in this. But I'm not going to buy a house virtually, and I'm probably not going to have a closet built virtually, but it will at least initially kick off the conversation to get things going.
No, but you will buy a car virtually.
Well, there's a lot of people buying cars virtually right now.
Right.
I see it from a client of ours who is one of our largest used car dealerships around, and people still need to buy cars. If they've been involved in an auto accident, their car breaks down, they need something new. And the sales reps are going out with a cell phone and just shooting video of the inside and outside of the car. And they're doing a lot of the paperwork remotely. The bank process is pretty much all done remotely. And they basically show up, sign a couple papers with a new pen, and they drive off with their car. How many times would you have driven 3 or 4 cars off the lot just to find the one you want?
Yeah. And so Carolyn says, Bonnie is mailing samples an option. You mean samples of what the closet would be like?
Samples of the closet?
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if you had a repository, 3D scans of all the spaces where you built custom closets and cabinetry, right? Now they could virtually enter that space, walk around, look around. You could click an image in this 360 and a pop-up image would come up, maybe where like a shoe drawer is pulled out, or a tie rack. Those type of marketing things, this just sound marketing skills, and I think that's what's going to cause us to think about how we do things differently.
I agree, but I don't disagree with them either.
Yeah,
I believe that,
people want to touch stuff. I want the smell of cedar.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, or they want that human. There's nothing like a face-to-face conversation. I don't think you can beat a face-to-face conversation. I'm sorry, I keep on like, I have so many things to look at here. Comments, screens, whatever. I just don't think that you're ever going to eliminate face-to-face. It's just too important. It's just going to change. That's it.
I hope we don't eliminate it. I mean, how bad is that for society
Awful.
as a whole? It's terrible.
Yeah. So, Ryan, how long have we been on? What time is it?
Cliff, we've been on for 54 minutes.
Oh, well, let's give ourselves another few minutes.
Okay.
I have my thoughts, but
So
where
how
do
has
you
this
think it's all going?
changed
What?
your business? How
Yes.
has this changed your business specifically?
I have a very expensive studio that I built. The only person that's gone in that studio for the past month is me. The studio's being wasted. By the same token, I'm doing virtual, all the shows that we're doing now, and we're doing the same amount or more shows. We're doing more shows now. Every one of those shows are virtual. Every single one. The host is in one place, the guest is in another place. Here's my beef with some of what I'm doing now that's changed, but I know that it'll evolve. I do all this fancy stuff, nice backgrounds, multi-views, graphics, lower thirds, it's good audio, but the video looks horrible to me because people are working at a spare office. They don't have the lighting's not correct. Sometimes the composition isn't right, or they're sitting down like this, and you can barely see them, while the other guy is right. He's like right in the camera. He's right here. I'll show you. The other guy's like this, and the lighting is poor. The composition is poor. To me, it's a nightmare. And what it does is I like to build these little masterpieces, and they end up looking like crap. And I'm not making a judgment on what people are doing because this is where we're at now. But I really want to see that change. So for me, there's going to be more virtual stuff. And that's how it's changing my business, is more and more virtual. But I also want to amp it up. I want to build inexpensive studios in people's homes because they can be built inexpensively. Little green screens, a couple little lights, good miking, a nice webcam, and I could build these shows that have a really high-end production value. I mean, better than even what you're seeing on the networks. I mean, I'm watching NBC, I'm watching CNN. Ryan, you know that we could build virtual shows that look as good or better than what the networks are doing. And so, yes, it's changing,
absolutely. I mean,
but there's this evolution that I need to see happen.
have you seen the Rick Santorum video? I think he was brought in on one of the major networks. Anyway, the entire thing was pixelated terribly. You couldn't understand it, hardly what he was saying. You certainly couldn't see him. And this is on a national level broadcast. And so I think that it's funny. I've seen something on some forums where people who do what we do in this webcast space kind of look down upon from the broadcast engineers, and now they're all scrambling how to figure this thing out because they're doing essentially what we're doing, whereas we're sending it to YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. They were sending it out to broadcast television. Well, the production point up to where it gets to its end point is the same. We're doing the same thing, but they just had no idea about how to do this thing remotely. And here we are, experts now in bringing in remote guests that sound great, that look great, framing. We're going over that type of stuff. But I think it is because we're passionate about it. I think that's one of the reasons why some of our productions do look really great. Whereas for them, it's just an economy of scale. They have so many guests to get on. We're thinking about our show specifically ahead of time. And for them, it's these 3 and 5 minute segments, and then they're off on to the next one.
Right. So, Ryan, this was a lot of fun. I had a really good time talking about this. We need to do this again. We need to do it more often.
Yeah, I agree. Look, I think these little mini studios, but I think people need to be thinking about how could they have their own show, Cliff? Whatever they're doing, how could they have a show that talks about what they're doing, or maybe a passion project? So even to everyone who's commented, what are you doing to host your own show, or talk about a thing that you're really interested in to build your brand?
I'm sorry, go on.
No,
I actually got a call today from a very well-known New York news journalist, not my friend Jane Hansen, somebody else, an actual meteorologist who was a meteorologist for many, many years on one of the big stations in New York. This person is no longer working for that station, and they said to me, you know what, I don't even want to go back. If somebody offered me a job, I don't want to go back and do that anymore. It was such a grind. So we were talking about the type of show that this person wants to do. The idea is really great, and I think it's really necessary. It's out of their wheelhouse of what they're normally known for, but I think it's a great idea, and here's the great part for him. Oh, now you know it's a he. He is going to get to control his own content for pennies on the dollar. And he's got a big enough a following that he may be able to approach some brands and say, hey, it's me. Why don't you sponsor me in my show? That could happen. I mean, how great is that?
Well, and the cost per impression, in traditional, these models of ROI, which I'd encourage anyone to go back and listen to a show that you produce from Simulmedia. The way that we traditionally think about ROI does need to change. And so where they would spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get 130 seconds, ad on a network, that the person turns around and is cooking the food during the nightly newscast. Now they're getting, a 30 or 45 minute show that is being brought to them by that brand.
Right.
And it's into forethought. The other thing is that it's personal. If you look at most podcasting where there's a monetization strategy, the show host is typically talking about the product. They tend to use that product. Otherwise, they don't even allow that person to be an advertiser. And the reason why is because they believe in it. If you're going to follow me and you believe in what I'm doing, and if I tell you about a great product, the chances of you purchasing it are significantly higher than if it was just an ad.
Yeah. That's if you personally use it. And that's what's so great about live streaming is the content marketing aspect of it. That it's not BS, slick ad. I really shouldn't be so judgmental, but it's just that it's so authentic and that people really use the product. That means a lot to the person who is viewing or participating in that live stream. They really do. And, I could go on and on and on with this conversation, Ryan.
Yeah.
This is like, we have so many applications. I had a guy call me up who's running for governor of a state that he was referred to me by the CEO of a Fortune 500, and he came to me because the CEO said to him, you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on ads. You could take a fraction of that money, give it to the Streamcast network, and you could have hours and hours and hours of your own content.
Yep.
That could never happen before.
I don't understand why more elected officials are not doing that. It
totally agree.
baffles my mind why.
I totally agree.
Why they continue to just bypass this whole thing. It's like, hey, vacation. Well, guess what? Elections are coming up. And we're pitching right now to a radio station who we've traditionally done a candidate forum with in
Yes.
person at a community college. Well, guess what? That can't happen. And it's probably not going to happen. And our primary is now coming up in June. So we've got a month and a half to figure out how we're going to have for candidates to get their information out to people, because I think there's 9 people running for 3 seats on a school board. Well, the smart candidates are starting to interact with people in a meaningful way. And the rest of them just aren't. The primary is going to come no matter what. And people just need to get ready for it.
But here's the thing, Ryan. You, the politician, you need to be live streaming any week after the election. Don't hide from me after the election. Don't sell me this bill of goods and come on for a few months or even 6 months before the election and then disappear. Be there for me. Be consistent.
And that's always what happens, Cliff. That is exactly what happens. We elect people into office, and then we don't hear anything else out of them. And I think that's kind of where, as a society, we're just over politics. You know, it's constant battles. It's constant negativity. You talk a really good game for me to vote you in office. I tend to go, this is just me, but I tend to go for the people that aren't trying to be radical and change up the entire world. You know why? Because it's probably not going to happen, for one. And I just want you to know that you're going to do good work for me and not try to completely buck the entire system.
But how great would it be for you as the incumbent to continue to live stream to me every week? I mean, we could set up a studio for you, flick a switch, you're on for half an hour once a week, and at least we're just getting to see you. We're getting to see what you're doing for us. We're getting to see that you're comforting us. We're getting to see that you're leading us. And what does that mean for you now when people go to vote? Well, you've built up this great relationship, and of course I'm going to vote for you the next time because you were there all the time making impressions to me and letting me know what you were doing every week. You're managing my expectations.
You're joining that person in a meaningful way,
Yep.
in the living room of their home or at their dinner table. And so when you're not, you're just forgotten about. And how often is it that even, you're trying to pass bills or do something that it gets written up in the paper or on the news media where it's not 100% correct, right? I mean, look at all the stuff that gets padded onto bills and things of that nature, and you vote against it. The primary objective of the bill was really good. It was sound, but everything attached to it wasn't. And so now everyone else is attacking you saying, well, you didn't want to help out the children in need. No. I want to help the children in need. It was everything else that was attached to the bill that was garbage. If you can't control your own narrative, then I think that's a problem. And that's a problem whether you're a politician or a business or anything else.
Yep. Well, Ryan, again, I could go on and on with this subject all day long. I think we have a lot of content we can cut up and curate and push this out. We need to do this again soon. I think we should do this maybe in another month. Maybe once a month we just talk about stuff like this on the show. What do you think?
I'm up for whatever, Cliff.
Cool.
I'm always down to help out. I'm happy that I could jump on.
I am so
in this
appreciative.
instance.
I'm very appreciative that you jumped on the show, and you were great to have on. This show was just as good as the other show was going to be anyway. It was really a lot of fun.
Hey.
And this Thursday,
good.
I'm actually doing a show with Tom Sinclair about the business of live streaming. So, and
I'll be tuning into that. I get the technical end, but the business side, like we've talked about before,
Yeah.
the scalability of what we're doing is really important.
Yeah, that's my thing. So it's gonna be like businessy, marketing, sales, and I think it's gonna be a really good show. It's not gonna be about the technology of live streaming. It's gonna be about here's what it's gonna do for you from a business sense. Here's how it's gonna build your business. Here's how it's gonna build your brand. And if you're available, I'll talk to Tom about you TDing the show, technical directing the show.
Sounds good.
So, but anyway, Ryan, again, thank you so much. I'll look forward to seeing you soon, and we will see you next Tuesday on Anatomy of an Entrepreneur, 5:30 p.m., same bat time, same bat channel.